Welcome back, everybody, to Florida Stacker on YouTube. Thank you for all of your support this year. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. This second video, the second part of my interview with the CEO of Wealth Research Group, Lior Gantz, we discuss the Fed, we talk about the jobs report and the impact on gold and silver prices. We're also going to look at some sectors in our industry, namely that Lior feels are primed for upcoming success over the next decade. And he'll share with us a link to a free report where you can gather more information on where to look. During part one of our interview, the link to that video pinned in the comment section, Lior gave us an update on the situation in Israel. He does live in Israel, and he includes his thoughts and viewpoints on why the conflict started and how it will ultimately end. However, let's get started now with part two. Remember, this is a podcast style video, so go ahead and set your phone or tablet down, put in your earbuds, connect your Bluetooth, and enjoy the listen. Hey, just wanted to ask you, there was a big jobs report the other day.
Yes.
You see the jobs report here in the United States? What do you see?
Absolutely.
If you'd like to switch over to the FOMC and the jobs report, just curious to know what you see from that, because it looks like some things are starting to move with gold and silver. Right now, we're still sitting just below 2,000. I might need to refresh my screen here to see if we went over 2,000 yet. But what's going on with gold?
So FOMC meeting November 3rd. Essentially, Powell acknowledges that the risks to raising more are balanced out with the risks of doing nothing. In other words, they are at a point where rates are high enough so that the lag effect is what's most important to watch.
Yeah.
Instead of raising more, they are more concerned that maybe they've over-tightened. So the market is 100% convinced the Fed is done raising rates. Then a few days later comes the inflation report, and that essentially month over month it was 0.1%. So even though prices are high, they're not getting higher, and that's really important
for the government. Just to be honest,
on CPI,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
but just to understand, price. No. Just to clarify, prices are high, but not getting higher.
Higher, right?
They are high, and they will remain high. You're going to live in a world of high prices for a while, probably for the next 3 to 5 years, as the United States reindustrialize and onshores and does a lot of things. So, with that positive inflation report, very moderate, now comes the jobs report. The jobs report actually came in more claims than expected. Meaning, you have a good economy, a robust economy, but not an overheated economy. So another confirmation that the Fed does not have to keep raising rates. And if anything, they may be able to start cutting rates as soon as May or June. Now, cutting rates, I think, for people to just understand, they're going to cut very slowly. They're going to cut once or twice a year until inflation is 2%. And only then will they lower the Fed fund rates, and probably not to 2%, but to 3% to cap that 2% inflation target. So I think we have to understand the world of zero interest rates is done, like never again. And we are living in a world of high interest rates, sticky inflation, and it will take 2, 3, 4 more years to get it down back to 2%. And interest rates are going to be normalized. And so in that world, there is a great case for gold and silver to keep rising, not amazingly, not like a roaring bull market, but certainly higher than it is today because of 2 reasons. One, there is too much internal division in the United States to justify a strong dollar. In other words, there is no plan on a national level. How do you stop these giant deficits from keeping on ballooning? So even if left and right, reds and blues came together and say, we have a plan on how to cut the deficit by $200 billion every year for the next 100 years. Even that will stabilize the dollar. Since they can't even come together on that, it will keep being a problem. And two, Trump supporters are not going to like this, but Trump also helped to disrupt the dollar when he started to talk about maybe some of our creditors, quote unquote, China, maybe we can default on some of that debt. And when you toy and weaponize the reserve currency, that's also not good. So those two things, along with a lot of sanctions, like Russia and other countries, there are about 40 countries in the world that are sanctioned in some manner by the United States. That's also weaponizing the SWIFT system. So all these three are weakening the dollar. Now we have to realize that a weak dollar is not like existential, because all the other fiat currencies are much shittier.
Yeah.
But it does create a situation where gold is already trading at an all-time high compared to 80 fiat currencies right now.
Yeah,
and
it's been that way.
US dollar is just going to be number 81. So I think that the real money is actually in the mining companies, because you need to rebuild the industrial capacity in the United States, and that includes mining. And so I think that is critical to understand. And also because of ESG. I'll give you an example. For example, in the nickel market, most of the nickel is mined in Indonesia and Philippines. Okay. Senators right now propose that we don't trade with Indonesia and Philippines because they produce such dirty mining standards. And the other big nickel deposit is in Siberia and Russia. So that's literally off the table.
That's a problem right now.
That's a problem. So now you get into a situation where who is supplying the nickel for our EV batteries? There is 5 times more nickel in an EV battery than there is lithium. So it's 29 kilos of nickel compared to 6 kilos of lithium. So where do you do it? There is one nickel mine in the entire United States of America right now. So you need to create more mines. There's plenty of minerals. You just need to do it. And of course, the big beneficiary is going to be Mexico as well, Mexico and Canada. So my point is that mining companies are going to flourish in the next few years, and that's real important. In fact, I put a great exclusive report together just yesterday for your viewers at wealthresearchgroup.com/boom. So if you want to download boom, because I think there's going to be a big boom in mining stocks, you can access the report and understand it. Also, I think that the big tech companies, the Magnificent Seven or whatever you want to call them, and other companies that are favored from globalization are not going to fare as well in the coming decade. And actually, domestic companies, the small cap companies, the companies that are listed more on the Russell 2000, those are going to be far greater beneficiaries of reindustrializing the United States of America.
Hey, thanks for that information, and we'll be sure to post a link to the report in the video description section. So if you're interested in downloading that report, just check out the video description section for it. Lior, my question for you is with a weakening dollar and inflation, I guess not really inflation, but interest rates, most people believe will start to come down next year. What's that going to do for the industry? What's that going to do for like commodities and the resource sector? You mentioned nickel, and I totally see where you're coming from with that, with the one mine. The United States has done the same thing to itself with uranium, which you're aware of. And we like to bring things into the country even though we have plenty of it here. And it appears, based on what I'm reading, that lithium is not really as big of a problem as it may have once thought to have been. The access to lithium, that is. I'm hearing that a lot of companies are already investing in lithium in the state of Texas and some other places. But what do you think about what are these lower interest rates going to do for gold mining companies, silver mining companies, and
like
also?
I said, I think there's a big boom coming for a couple of reasons. First of all, the shale revolution in the United States makes it so that the United States oil industry is the cheapest in the world. You produce in the United States the cheapest oil there is anywhere on the planet.
Wow. Okay.
It's very important to understand that. It's the cheapest. Therefore, it's the best for industrial uses. So that's number one. Two, Europe just became a huge consumer of American goods because Russia has left.
Yeah, kind of had no
Exited. So
choice
you have
there. Yep.
exactly. So you have LNG, you have oil, and also you have weapons. The defense industry.
Yes.
Germany is building its military capabilities again. France is doing the same thing. So I agree with you. Uranium. I 100% agree with you. The United States is going to do a lot of uranium infrastructure. And my inclination is to tell you that in the next 2, 3, 4 years, you need to think of how you are going to marry your fate to this industrialization in America. There are going to be people that buy land in areas where big companies are going to want to buy that land and build a factory or build a new community. Whatever you do in life, whatever your career is, make sure you also in your locality or somewhere that you can be a part of, have interest in real estate. Real estate in America is going to boom in many sectors. So just even as a second job or as a side hustle or as a secondary income, look at how you get into real estate. It's very important. Because I think there's going to be a huge opportunity for everyday Americans. You're going to see millionaires that are like, my grandfather left me this piece of land 50 years ago. Now Intel is going to, build something here, or other big companies, or the municipality wants to build a road right through there, and they give you an exit. That is going to happen.
Question for you on that, Lior. So say you're someone that may not be in a financial position to purchase land directly. Are there opportunities to invest through Wall Street or some other method into something like that to gain exposure to what's to come without direct land ownership? I'm thinking of somebody that's on a budget here that wants to get in.
Yeah, there are real estate companies and there are real estate investment trusts that are publicly trading. REITs that are publicly trading, and some of them are more correlated to some states or some niches, etc. So certainly those opportunities do exist, and you can also have it as a derivative. For example, a lot of the states that people are moving into are the hotter states in terms of weather.
Yes.
So companies that do pools, for example, that can be a good one. Companies that do landscape, because people are moving from the urban centers into residential. They want to buy a house with a garden, with a yard. That can be another one where you don't have to be in the real estate industry directly, but you can buy a very attractively priced or very dominant player in landscapes, or like I said, in pools or in solar panels, because there's going to be a huge move into solar panels, either on your own home or as an infrastructure.
Right. Yep.
Those things are going to be important. Companies that have to do with logistics, industrial buildings, especially if we if we amend the Jones Act. Do you know the Jones Act?
I'm not familiar. Not right offhand.
The Jones Act is the stupidest law in the world. It's a law from 100 years ago, where every vessel, like a ship that goes into the United States, has to be made in the United States, captained by an American, and crewed by American. And it's from 1920s, when it was between the world wars, and there was a lot of protectionism. But it made the Rust Belt, it made the heart of America useless. Instead of the Mississippi being one of the most flourishing places in the world, it made all the cities there in the last 100 years, rot. And just if you think about the efficiencies that can come from shipping routes from Chicago all the way to the Great Lakes, and then into New York, and then from New York to Miami, and into the Gulf of Mexico and inland through the Mississippi River. I mean, you're talking about efficiencies that can not only employ many more people, but lower the cost of logistics within the United States, create many new hubs of industry and commerce, and those cities will boom. So if and that's such low hanging fruit. It's literally just changing a few of the terms on the Jones Act. You don't have to really repeal it. You can just change a few of the things.
I'll have to look into that. I've been to all those St. Louis all the way down to the Gulf of. I've been there many times, and it's not necessarily what you would call some of the more high income areas of our country. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly, and it can be flourishing. So my point is, if you're looking for ways to do this, one way is in your locality. If your locality is flourishing, you can do what's called sweat equity. Sweat equity is when a contractor is very busy with his construction sites. He can't find new deals for himself. You can be the one who looks for deals for him, and you get sweat equity, meaning that if he closes a deal, then he pays you a commission. That is a way for many people to be involved in this. And if you can think about like a person that's on Uber and anyways is running through town, he can see these things happening. So there are many ways. I'm not going to give you like a real estate tutorial here, but there are ways, even if you search online, how can I get into real estate with no money down? There'll be like a list of hacks or whatever you want to call it, but go to speak with realtors, speak with agents, say, hey, what can I do? Or put me together with an investor club that I can go and see what they need. And there are many things where you can do just by walking the neighborhood, running the neighborhood.
Oh yeah, it's booming here in
Florida. Get your exercise and get exercise. Oh, Florida. I mean, talk about like a boom.
Big time. The only problem is the homeowners insurance here is out of control because of the weather and the storms.
Speak with investors, see what you can do, find become a solution provider.
There you go. So one of the reasons I brought up that question, Lior, is because a lot of times people obviously say, okay, this particular asset or commodity is going to do really well, but there may be contributing companies. Like for instance, we talk about a gold mining company. Well, who services the gold mining companies? Who helps build their infrastructure? Who's capitalizing their expansion? Those are the sort of things that I like to think about too, so you can get indirect exposure to the boom, right?
Absolutely.
So, that's what absolutely kind of where that question came from.
I own a company in my portfolio, for example. So you can check out my portfolio. It's on wealthresearchgroup.com/portfolio. You can literally download my entire portfolio. I think the first company in there is called ANSYS, ANSYS. I'm not saying you go buy the shares of the company right now because they're trading at 50 times PE.
Okay.
But what that company does is it simulates everything that you need to know about your product on incredibly sophisticated 3D modeling. So, for example, if you're Boeing and you want to lower your fuel efficiency by 20%, and the engineers are thinking like maybe we'll move the wing 5 inches back. What will that do? You can't build a plane and start testing it.
Nope.
So ANSYS goes and simulates that on supercomputers for you, and it tells you everything you need to know. It can save you hundreds of millions of dollars in some problems. So you're talking about like ancillary ways to enjoy this. This is some of those ways that you need to look at to understand. There are companies that service the energy industry. So, like I said, you don't need to bet on who is going to be the winner in the chip race. You can say who services all the chip companies, etc. So I get what you're saying, and it's true. You want to invest in companies like that are agnostic of who becomes the dominant, but just service the entire growth of the industry itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lior, for breaking that down. So one of the things that we kind of touched on a little bit was the gold and silver mining companies. Directly, how do you see them benefiting? I'd say, I don't know, over the next 10 years or so.
I don't know about 10, but
Yeah.
I can tell you about, like, right now, when you look at gold mining companies, they are generationally, if not historically, cheap. They are very cheap.
They are cheap. Yes.
They are absolutely cheap, no matter how you look at them. So, in that report, by the way, /boom, we talk about more like in depth. But just to give you my most important thing, what I think that people need to do is learn about the top 10 people in the mining industry, the top 10 best serial entrepreneurs in the mining industry, and start from there. Mining is extremely laborious, very capital intensive, and requires experts to create profitable companies.
That's right.
If you can find the right people, that's your prerequisite. It's never about the project, or it's never about just the project, because they're all selling the same thing. They're selling ounces of gold, or
That's
ounces
right.
of silver, or pounds of nickel.
Yep.
Whoever runs it most efficiently, that's who you need to care about. That's what you need to care about. So your first thing is, find the next big conference next to your locality and do a business trip. Go to 50 booths, understand the community, or do it online. But whatever you do, start with the people. Start with understanding the people. That has always been my prerequisite. That's always how I invested personally in this industry.
That's a great principle. And hey, I'm noticing a trend here. You're suggesting people take responsibility for themselves, that they go out and they do these things themselves, because people are capable of doing these things. Most folks, they hear about an opportunity and they think it's either too late or too difficult. But there is a way if you're willing to put the time and effort into it.
If you put 90 days into this, 90 days, every day you call 2-3 CEOs. You take all the GDX companies, all the companies listed on the GDX or the GDXJ, which is easier to talk to the CEOs.
The juniors, yeah.
The juniors. You call the company every day and say, hey, can I speak with either the CEO or CFO or somebody high up in management? I'm thinking of buying shares. I want to ask 5 questions. 1, ask them insider ownership. How much do you own? What do you stand to gain from this company? Do you take a salary, or do you own shares and options?
Right.
2, tell me about the project. What is your business plan on how to unlock shareholder value? If you do that for 90 days, you speak with between 180 to 270 companies. My God, the amount of data you will get, and you will be able to discern who is an honest person, who's a trustworthy person. 90 days, and you become an expert. You can then extrapolate your data, build a YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
And go over this daily. Like, do a daily show. I spoke to this CEO for 30 minutes. Here's the recap. It's endless. Like, just think of opportunities, think of entrepreneurship. We have to understand, you are in the age of entrepreneurship. The salaries in America are not going anywhere. They're going to be 2%, 2-3%, just like the economy. It's never about the salary. It's always about how much value you can create. That's right. In our day and age, with everybody looking for content, like literally, people want to understand more about everything. Open a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Well, I'm living proof that somebody can drop a bunch of coins on a table and talk about a collection of gold and silver.
Correct.
4.5 years later, here we are, and we're still going strong. I believe strongly in personal responsibility and entrepreneurship. I have built myself into over 5 income streams now, and I'm 43 years old. So, I mean, I'm a little older than some, but a lot younger than most, and they're investors, I should say. And I totally 1000% agree. So we also talked. So we talked about infrastructure.
I have 4 minutes. Sorry, just to let you know.
Yeah. So why don't we just let you go ahead and end now, Lior, with anything else you'd like to say? Because I think we've covered the core topics here. Gold.
Sure. I don't want to put you on a hook or something, but I just need to let you know.
You're good, Lior. Any closing statements then for the audience? Most of the folks viewing today are probably going to be looking at
no World War III.
You don't think so?
That's everybody. Everybody wants to know. No World War III. Nothing. Just relax. There's no World War III because of the Gaza situation. I think that it's really important that America gets its act together. America is the most important country to ever exist, and it must have leaderships that are not politicians, but statesmen, people that think in terms of decades and not years, because we have 3 major wars that could erupt into more wars. And I want to address this real quick, how this can go south. If Israel can't do its job, and being the only real democracy in the Middle East and the only legitimate ally to oil security for Europe and the United States, American jet fighters are going to be scrambled from Greece, Croatia, Italy. You're going to see a war.
Yeah.
That's number 1. So you need a good president. 2, if Russia defeats Ukraine, the next country is a NATO country. Now, if you've been listening for a year or two to Western propaganda that Putin is only defending itself,
no,
it's those NATO countries. They lied to him. He's a little squirrel, a little fuzzy teddy bear, and it's the Americans. They're warmongers. It's the military-industrial complex. It's the CIA. It's the JFK people. Just do yourself a break. President Putin has one defining thing in his life. It's the day that his KGB station was attacked. He called Moscow, and Moscow said, "We have nothing we can offer you. We are falling apart." And that is the scar that runs through his heart when Mother Russia fell. And from that day forward, he's trying to glorify Russia again, even though it's a delusional idea.
So he's trying to make Russia great again, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Not like Trump, but yeah. And for Russia, they need to secure their topography.
Yes.
Because the vast plains, they have to have access to the seas. They have to have access until the mountains, and those mountains are controlled by Romania and other NATO countries. So a big problem. And of course, there's China's lust to get Taiwan back, which is also insane. So you have 3 major war fronts, and America is the one that stands between those, and especially in the case of Taiwan and the Ukraine that can't defend themselves on their own.
Yes.
Those are the 3 main areas. Now, like I said, hopefully there's a way to solve it without
I hope so.
a conflict.
My personal opinion is that Ukraine is going to have to make concessions. Russia has over 100 million more people than Ukraine, and even though we continue to fund the war and give them weapons, they are losing manpower at a rapid rate. It's not going well in Ukraine, believe it or not, guys. I agree.
And their economy is done. So there will be something here. So
I'm really hoping
happening.
That an agreement can be had under the next U.S. president, and we'll see what happens. A lot of things are coming up. November 5th is less than a year away. So, Lior, hey, thank you again for your time. Thank you for sharing all of your insights.
Absolutely.
We'll get all those in the video description section, all of the links to the news articles and references in today's video.
And the newsletter is free. If you want to jump on the homepage and just subscribe.
And also his portfolio, which I like to look at too. So thank you guys again for being here today, watching Florida Stacker with Lior Gantz, and we'll see you again soon.
Shalom.